Okay, so I'm going to give you some fundamental information, a few tips on buyer consultations. And a lot of this comes from practice, repetition, familiarity, right? Spending more time with the material. You are in a new world. You are an entrepreneur. You are trying to build rapport and gain trust of people who want to buy or sell, right? That's the number one thing before your expertise, your negotiation skill, how cute your social media pictures are, and everything like that. It kind of comes down to, do I trust you that you're going to do the right thing and it's not going to turn into a disaster, right? So you want to know what the path is for somebody and then be able to articulate that, not in exhaustive detail, because our brains can only take so much. Like this is even going to be simplified because if it's too heavy, our brains turn off, right? So you have to find a way to take a complex set of steps and make it easy to understand and show that there is a path, why they need you to lead them down that path so that they sign a buyer broker agreement and you are their representative. All right. So, when is a good time to buy? Hopefully, this graphic shows you anytime's a good time to buy. Why? Because next year, everything is going to cost more. It doesn't matter what the interest rates are, the market conditions, the unemployment rate, or anything like that. If you notice, this is basically sales prices in the last 10 years locally here in Hampton Roads. And what do? They keep going up. So anybody who's waiting for a market crash or some sort of big dip in prices, it's not coming because real estate is rare. It's scarce, right? Now, if all of a sudden in Chesapeake and Suffolk they built 5,000 new homes, okay, well, that might cause a little reverberation, but those are going to eventually be filled up too, right? So since there's a scarcity of a product, it keeps costing more. So if they are waiting until next year, they're probably either buying less house or a house that costs more. So that's why it's better to get into a house now to start working on your equity, right? A home is going to appreciate. You're going to be paying the house down because you're not throwing away money to rent. That's absolutely useless. Your property is growing, it's appreciating in the marketplace. So now there's more separation. And if you make any sort of modifications or changes, you may actually increase that appreciation even more. So have an understanding that it is something that is a good path, a good trajectory towards their personal wealth. All right, so what is on the buyer's mind? Anyone think of, okay, a buyer is just getting into the marketplace. What are some of the things that a buyer would be thinking about? Any thoughts? Any ideas?
Equity, just like you said.
Equity, yeah, and some will have a good idea of what equity is, and some don't. Some don't understand that, and it's because of lack of education, right? Schools don't really teach too much about home buying. It might have been not talked about that much in the home. You know, we're going on Google and AI, and we're going to get mixed results. So most people, when they're choosing to buy a home, right, it's either because of space or, perhaps like cosmetic reasons, right? Like they see these amazing kitchens on TV and it's like, wow, I would love to live around something like that too. Let me go take a look, right? So buyers are thinking about um, the same way that when they buy cars, right? A car is typically your first big purchase. So what do? You look online, hey, this car looks pretty good. Then you show up at the car dealership, you test drive the car, then you talk to the salesperson, then you talk to the bank, and then they're going to get you in that car no matter if you're paying $200 a month or $2,000 a month, right? That's typically the process. Home buying, they kind of approach it the same way. All right, let me call this agent. No, no, I don't want you as an agent. I just want to walk around this house. I don't know if I can afford it or not because I have no idea what really a monthly payment is about. And we're going to go over that. And if I like it, then I'll talk to the bank and I'll get pre approved and see if I can afford this house. Anybody who's experienced, I'm sure you've run into that over and over and over again, right? That's how they think. Let me look at the house. Let me walk around, right? Even the ones that want to buy in a year from now, they want to just go see the house and walk around, right? Then they will engage with the agent, then with the bank, and it's completely backwards. Really, what they should do is they should talk to the lender first, really, to find out what is their affordability. Communicating with an agent to find homes in their criteria, taking a look at homes that they actually can afford, and then making the right choices based on their criteria, right? So it's like car buying completely flipped, and you have to find ways to educate them on that process because the buyers are always going to have a home first mentality. And you have to kind of back that up and say, hey, I want to help you out on the process. That's what I'm here for. Not a salesperson, I'm more of a coach and a guide. So moving forward, what buyers and sellers want most from real estate agents, right? Buyers don't want your list of houses. Now, look, if you can suggest houses in their criteria that they're not seeing because they keep choosing stuff under contract, but you find other alternatives, sure, that's great. But if you look at the red arrow, those who are younger home buyers, it's the steps to the home buying process. That's what they need, right? So anybody who is going to be a younger home buyer, if you start talking about the steps, say it's kind of a complex process. I'm here to make it easy for you. I'm here to walk you through all the steps of buying a home, and I have your back. Now you're talking their language. Now, if you notice where it's blue and it's underlined, those who are experienced buyers, older buyers, maybe they already bought, they're on house number 2, number 3. It's, believe it or not, completing the paperwork and the transaction is the number one thing, right? They may not need help on the home buying steps unless it's been a long time since they've been in the marketplace. But really, they don't consider it difficult in the buying process. They need help finding the right property, yes, but completing the paperwork and the transaction, that's where your value is. So remember who you are talking with. A buyer representation agreement. So this creates a lot of anxiety with agents and buyers at the same time, right? Agents are afraid to ask. They're afraid to hear no. They're afraid to ask someone to sign something. A lot of it comes down to because the agent doesn't really understand what's in the agreement. So that's why I challenge you, take the buyer broker agreement and read it over and over again until you know it. Um, Buyers, they're afraid. They don't know what they're signing. The agent hasn't really articulated it to them. They're afraid they're locked into an agreement when they don't feel they're ready. So, how can you articulate your value to them and why it's important? Buyer representation agreement, it sets mutual expectations in writing. What you can expect from me as an agent. And now it describes our relationship, our agent and client relationship, because I'm committed to you, you're committed to me, we're going to work together. So, it commits me to finding the perfect home for you. And it confirms exclusivity between both of us. So just remember a little bit of that. Let's kind of open up a buyer representation agreement a bit, right? Now, I wouldn't necessarily go down the whole list in some sort of buyer consultation, but I would challenge you to know what's in here. And there is a way to simplify it, and I'll show you in the next slide on that. But broker services, how do you help somebody? The more you know how you help somebody, the better and more confident you'll be able to explain that to somebody, right? The top red arrow, provide information on properties listed in the MLS. The next one, on any property you wish to purchase, strategize and determine a price, financing, possession, seller contributions, prepare the purchase offer and negotiation. Helping him write the offer and negotiate, basically, and strategize what will the terms be. And then number 7, represent you during inspections, meetings, and service providers and closings. So you're far more than somebody who just shows up last minute and opens the door, right? You do a lot more than that. So how can you articulate why they need you, right? And then the green part, the buyer obligations, yes, because it's a buyer broker agreement that commits both of us together and work exclusively with you to acquire property. And that's a home that could be on the market or for sale by owner or new construction so that you can negotiate and help them through the steps. Next, the other green arrow, seek a pre-approval from a mortgage lender. So obtaining that loan approval is part of the deal. And then lastly, the bottom green arrow, if the broker's not present, you, the agent, if you're not present, they have a duty to inform builders, site agents, for sale by owners, the other real estate agents at these open houses that they're represented. And then that way the proper conversation is happening at that time. All right. How can we make it easier, right? You might have heard of something like elevator pitches, right? Elevator pitches, you're in a short ride in an elevator. How can you articulate what you do or how you can help somebody in a short amount of time? Well, instead of reading the whole page on the buyer broker agreement of duties and responsibilities, and how about simplifying it? Why it matter to you? You know, Trey, you might be wondering, and I know it's not easy to sign an agreement. And what I want to do is make sure that you understand what my value is to you. What I'm going to do is assist you through all the steps of buying a home. Sometimes it gets a little complicated. I'm here to make it easy, help you search and view available homes for sale because I may be able to find some that aren't on some of the popular sites like Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor.com. Research comparable sales and negotiate the best price for your home so you don't pay too much. And then I want to make sure that I arrange inspections. We may need to negotiate some repairs so that you get a home in good condition because it could cost thousands of dollars down the road, right? So this is something I need to know off the top of my head what my value is to somebody. I'm going to help you through all the complex steps of buying a home. I want to make sure that you get in the homes that you want to see that you can afford. We're going to make sure we negotiate the best offer so you don't pay too much. And we're going to have it inspected to make sure that it's in good condition in case any repairs need to be inspected. So you can see how I can
I
take
got a
some.
question on that,
Yep.
if you don't mind.
All right.
So I went on that showing with you the other day, and I see a lot of things because of my experience in houses that I don't want to say it too early and just make them not want to buy the house. You know what I mean? How do you that like that's a tough little balance there for me that I'm trying to figure out. You
Well,
know,
what you want to do is, especially in real estate, is you have to stay within your expertise while you're wearing a real estate hat, right? So you have to be careful of continuously talking people out of houses, right? Because even if there are things that aren't necessarily correct, we may have an opportunity to have it inspected and negotiate repairs. So if we are talking them out of it conditionally just on the showing, we're going to be showing houses forever. No house is perfect. Every house needs repairs. Every house gets a home inspection report of like 20, 40. Now I see like 100 pages of some of these inspection reports that are getting out of hand.
yeah.
So you just
If
want
I
to be
see
careful.
something, should I say it though? If I see something like, hey, you know, you know what I mean? Because there's like at that last house, there's some like water damage by in that little closet, and then
Yeah.
I didn't know if I
So,
should bring it up or not.
right. What I would do is I would stick to appraisal related items. So if they are a VA or FHA buyer and they need it in good condition, but there's certain things like missing shingles, holes in the wall, water damage, as you mentioned, gaps in the siding or missing siding, peeling paint, um, systems that just don't work or are missing. If it's some of the obvious appraisal type stuff, that's when I would mention, I'd say, hey, let's remember that you have a VA loan. There's going to be an appraisal, and they're not strict, but they are a little conservative on some of the conditions. So it looks like they have an active leak here. This not only is discolor, but while it feels a little moist, I mean that's something an appraiser may see. So we can always negotiate up front to see if they're willing to fix this. So we do have an opportunity in our contracts to try to pre-negotiate a repair up front to see if we get some sort of commitment on that. But if we're dialing in a little too much with some of let's say contractor experience, um, that could actually hamper things. While we're on that topic, right? Let's use an analogy because you're going to run into this. And this is not anything about technical expertise. This is for everybody. It's a little showing tip that you're going to walk into a house and there's going to be a cosmetic style choice and you're going to hate it. You're going to be like, who on earth would paint their room this color? Right. And you have to be careful because your client may love it. Right. And so you have to tactfully find a way, if they are reacting to something, they walk in and you see this paint, and before you start shooting your mouth off about how ugly it is when they really love it. Like maybe they love wallpaper, or who knows, maybe they like older type of style homes or something, right? If they walk in and they say, wow, these walls are purple. Instead of giving your opinion saying, yeah, you're right. What do you think of that? Oh, I love purple. I'm not changing it. Well, okay, you got it, right? So don't get in the way of your client. All right, moving forward. So the home buying steps, find a way to understand it in your brain. You can use different language if you want. You can memorize this if you want to make your life easier, that you're there for the steps, access to homes, negotiating that offer, and working it through the inspection contingencies. That's why you exist, to help them out. The home buying process, and this is a screen grab right from our home buyer guides. We have two of them. You can always take them, flip flop the pages, omit pages, add your own pages, whatever you want to do, right? Um, or just use them as they are to get going. But the home buying process, finding an agent, pre-approval, working on finding a home that's in their price range that works with their financing or purchasing type, making an offer, getting the home inspections and an appraisal, and then you are closing the home, getting keys, most likely same day, and here you go. We're going to go over this a little bit more down the road. But this is what you want to be able to know, like the back of your hand, and to be able to briefly explain this, whether you're sitting in an office, standing in a driveway, in a kitchen, at a Starbucks, no matter where you are, right? Sitting next to somebody on a plane, you know this process, and without a cheat sheet, you know how to explain it and keep it easy. That's the challenge on this. Understanding the difference between pre-approvals and pre-qualifications. Pre-approvals, okay, that's a letter from the lender. They've probably looked at credit, received some income documentation. There's a bit more strength to a pre-approval. Doesn't mean that it's a guarantee, right? Because there could be things that come up down the road, but it is going to be a little stronger than a pre-qualification or a pre-qual, where it's not a formal commitment from the lender. They may not even have talked to a lender. They might have just gone on a website and said, yeah, I make $100,000 a year. My credit is like 750. And they just spit out a page that says, oh, well, you're pre-qualified up to $500,000, right? And that happens a lot. So you're paying attention to a letter if they have it. Is their lender contact information? Are you checking in with that lender, right? Are you thinking, okay, well, I've never heard of ABC Mortgage out of, Madawaska, Maine. Maybe I should connect them with one of our ZHL lenders, or with Movement Mortgage or Evolution, or whoever our local partner is, to see if we can get them a better interest rate and to verify some of the information that's on there. So you want to get familiar with that. Also understand what makes a mortgage payment. Buyers are coming from what? Either living with their parents or renting, right? And you're just paying $1,500 a month and that's it. It's one lump sum, right? Buying houses, it's the same. Maybe not, right? There's different pieces, and some of those pieces of the mortgage can fluctuate based on certain criteria that could increase their mortgage payment, right? Principal, interest, taxes, insurance. The principal, you're paying towards what you actually bought the house for, right? Interest, okay? That's the cost of borrowing the money for that principal. Taxes, you got to pay some state taxes, right? Property taxes on that. And it could change by each locality. Some charge a little bit more per house than others. And then insurance. So if it's financed, they have to have homeowners insurance. Even if they bought cash, you don't want to have a house without insurance, right? The universe will find you if you don't. So it can change basically on the locality, right? The taxes could go up or down, interest rate, and that is one of the problems with affordability sometimes, that the interest rate may drive their payment up a little bit. Insurance as well, yes. There are certain houses that may cost a little bit more insurance wise, or if it's in a flood zone, that requires additional insurance. Okay, so now if they're paying an extra $150 per month towards flood insurance, that is going to hurt their overall payment. Because let's say they're pre-approved to $2,000 a month. Okay, great. But if now $100 of that is going towards extra insurance, guess what? You're buying less house because less is going towards principal and more is going towards insurance. Does everyone understand that? Any questions on this very important page? All right, let's move forward. So, down payment. There's a lot of misconceptions on this, right? There are plenty that believe that you got to put like 20, 25% down on a house. And if you want to, you certainly can. But there are plenty of zero down options, like for most times VA buyers, it's zero down. And they do have FHA-based programs that are 0% down grants that help people. FHA is going to be 3.5%. There are some conventional loans that are 3 to 5%. And yes, there are some down payments that go a little bit higher too. But most home buyers are paying about 5% or less on a down payment. The vast majority are paying 0 to 3.5. The VA and FHA buyer pool takes up a big chunk of buyers. So you want to really understand those loan types, and you also want to get the misconceptions cleared up with your buyer. Like, well, we got to save up money. Well, that's interesting that you say that, Dakota. How much are you trying to save? I mean, we need like 20%, so it's like 60 grand. It's gonna like take forever. Well, Dakota, I got great news for you, right? You don't have to save up 20%. I know a lot of loan programs where between 0 to 3.5%, we could probably get you that loan. Let me get you connected with my lender. So there could be also gift funds that they are really receiving from family that can help with the down payment as well. So it doesn't always necessarily have to be out of their pocket. And you want to coach them to maintain their pre-approval as well, right? Don't buy anything big. Don't and I tell you, every agent has a war story. They had their client pre-approved and they bought a car, they bought a truck, or they racked up the credit card, or they went out and bought a house full of furniture because they got excited, right? Don't buy anything big. Matter of fact, don't buy anything. Live off of ramen noodles for a month, right? No new credit or debit debit added. So basically, don't open any other credit cards, and even be careful of what you're paying down. The credit world is weird. Sometimes you're paying down your credit card and you're thinking you're doing the right thing, and all of a sudden your credit score goes down a few points. I'm like, what is that all about, right? So, if there's going to be any sort of activity with credit, have them always check in with a lender, and you got to remind them on this because new buyers in the beginning, even experienced buyers, are getting a lot of information. They're not going to remember or hear everything. You want to be the person to remind them to help them out, and then protect your down payment. Don't spend it. Put it in a different account. Act as though it doesn't exist, right? Okay. So, now part of your job too is to help buyers get a good list of what their criteria is, right? There could be things that they're not thinking about. There could be things that they're overthinking about, right? They may have an obsession with a remodeled kitchen and walk-in closets, let's say, or it was their dream to always have a pool, but they may be overlooking where their kids are going to go to school, or do they really want to drive that far to work every day, right? So I noticed that Anastasia is on here, and I'm sure that she has run into, and I have as well, plenty of people from Virginia that want to go to North Carolina because they may get more house for their money and more land, overlooking the fact that they're going to be driving an hour and a half to work every day, right? So you want to ask some important questions, and this is in one of our buyer guides. The more important questions are at the top of the list, higher priority, and then at the bottom, those are some of the features. So some of the needs, what area do you desire, school zones, your time frame, your desired price range, your monthly payment, because they could be pre-approved up to a certain amount, but may not want to really spend that amount. And you want to be clear that they're shopping in the right monthly payment range, because that is something tangible they see and pay every month. And are they trying to stay a certain distance from work? What type of home? Is it single family or townhome or condo or a multifamily? Because some VA buyers can move into a duplex or a quad as an owner occupant and rent out the other units. Square footage, how many bedrooms, number of bathrooms, right? Those are all super important questions. And use something like this as a cheat sheet so that you are on track and you get them thinking about the right things. Then on the bottom, that's what we're talking about: fenced yard, garage. Do you really need a garage or it's like a big shed? Okay. Walk-in closets. Do you need a primary bathroom in the bedroom? Certain things like that. So you want to be asking questions. And what I would do is at a buyer consultation, I would give them a copy of something like this and give them a pen if this is in person so that you can get their minds thinking about um, what they want in their next home. And when they participate, then their brains are going to be in a better spot. They're going to change from that anxiety and fear of the process to, hey, this is a little bit more fun now. Now I'm building my dream. So I would highly encourage that you do something like that. While we're on this topic of buyer consultations, let me say that yes, it could be in person. Our office is always ready, willing, and able to help you out with that. And it could be on the go. It could be at their house or a vacant house that you visited and you're going over a scaled down, quicker version, or it could be online, right? So I would challenge you to find a way. How can you do a buyer consultation and even open up the MLS on a Google Meet or a Zoom in the near future? All right. So with that, let's look at some of the resources. I'm on Brokerment, our document management system, right? And right at the very middle top under useful links, one of the links there is First Class Marketing Portal. If you open that up, it's going to open up another website. It's an intranet. So it's looking for your email associated with First Class. Works better on Chrome, by the way. And there's a number of things on this, and feel free to click away at all our free marketing templates that you can use. But right now, I'm under presentations. So under presentations, we have two home buyer packages. We have one from a few years ago that has some pretty useful things. Matter of fact, that's where I got the home buyer's checklist from. And then we have one that's, I'd say, a little bit more visually appealing, and that's updated, and that is Home Buyer Guide number 2. I'm going to open that up. I would suggest downloading these on your computer. You can open them up in Canva to personalize if you want. If you need help with that, we have people that can add your pictures, add your info, add your reviews on these, and help you tweak it. Now, there are some agents that will go and they'll do some research and they'll buy buyer guides from like sites like Etsy and a number of other things. And that's fine. There's a lot of great material out there. Just make sure it's relevant to your local market because real estate is hyper local. What we talked about in Virginia may be a little different in North Carolina, right? One simple process, right? In Virginia, as soon as they close at the table, we can hand over keys and they're moving into the house, even though the deed's going to be recorded the next day. Well, in North Carolina, not so fast, right? They're closing, but it's got to record and then fund, and then we're handing over keys, right? So just right over the border, we've got a little bit of a different process, right? So if someone from Etsy is putting together a buyer packet and they live in Nebraska, it may be a little bit different. So make sure you're sharing the right information. Now, opening up this, we're on our buyer's guide right here. It has a simple cover page where you can change your name, right? Now, if you don't, please don't use something generic where it just says agent name. Eliminate the page if it's not customized. Yep, this is not you. This is someone else. So again, either eliminate it or edit it so that we know a little bit more about you, right? And then having your contact info. The home buying process is there. Finding an agent, pre-approval, finding your home, making an offer, what have you, right? I'm going to go over this here a little bit. So as far as a buyer consultation, what I would also grow to get more comfortable with if you are an emerging agent. is being able to open up the multiple listing service, not in private, but in front of your client, and you're asking them questions and you're putting a search together in real time. And that's going to come with practice time and familiarity. So you don't want to look at the MLS for the first time when you're sitting down with a buyer. Nope, no, you've already looked at it a lot. So if someone says, I want a walk-in closet, you know where to find that in interior features, right? If somebody says, I want a gazebo because it's always been my lifelong dream, then I know in exterior features I can find that. If I know that somebody says, I don't want a condo because I don't want to pay a condo fee, then I know to go where ownership type is and click simple ownership to avoid condos, right? And that just simply comes with time. Now, I'm not saying years. I'm saying how much time are you spending with the MLS right now, right? I would challenge you to go in the MLS every day, every day. The better you get with that professional tool, you're going to create opportunity, no doubt. Moving forward, all right? So with the buyer consultation, in our, let's say in our office setting, you can be in the conference room. You can actually share your computer screen with a television that we have in there so they could see your materials. You can always have them printed out. I would have a buyer broker printed out as well. The buyer broker we get into in a little more depth with specific buyer broker training so that you have a full understanding of that. But the goal is to have that sign. I would have it printed out and I would have it on the table ready to go, right? I would probably have two copies, right? One where they're going to sign, and I'm going to give them a copy. They can go home and tear through if they want, or be able to scan it with my phone and send them the signed version if I need to. And you want to think of, okay, loan type. If it's a VA loan, all right, we need to make sure that we're looking for homes that are generally in good condition. So foreclosures, short sales that are as is, probably not good options for them, right? No one's doing repairs. They're probably in pretty rough condition because if a person couldn't afford the house, they couldn't afford the maintenance. FHA, you know, the conditions are pretty close to VA type appraisal conditions, right? So they don't want to see peeling paint. They don't want to see filthy carpet. They want systems that turn on, utilities that work, right? They don't want water damage and a number of other sort of things. So we're looking for homes in good condition. Conventional can have some bumps and bruises and is a little bit more liberal on condition. But still, if this is something they're going to occupy, you generally want to find something in good condition, right? If it's cash, well, at that point, they have a lot more latitude as to what they want to purchase. Moving forward, I want to thank you for coming in today. What I wanted to do was go over a little bit of the home buying process. I wanted to congratulate you on getting your pre-approval for your VA loan. You have a chance to purchase up to 400,000. You are in a situation where there is no money down. And now one of my purposes to make sure that I could negotiate as much closing cost coverage as I can. And it'll really depend, Mr. or Miss Buyer, based on the home, how long it's been on the market, how well is it priced, is there any competition for the home? And in those scenarios, and I'll always fully communicate on our offers process how things look for each home. But my goal is to get you into a home for as little money out of pocket as possible. And I'll go over a few things that may cost you a few dollars so you can save for that. So look, finding an agent is step one on the home buying process. Imagine that, right? We put ourselves at the top of the list, and I look forward to helping you. I'm not really a salesperson. I'm more of a coach or a guide through the process. So I want to make sure that you're always fully informed. And look, when we're in some houses, sometimes you may think that I'm actually trying to talk you out of it because I am watching the situation. I'm basically there. I have your back to make sure that you're protected throughout that process. Congrats on your pre-approval. VA loan is an amazing loan to have because you don't have to pay private mortgage insurance. So that means more of your money each month is going towards your principal. And there are other things that we can do as far as increased seller concessions, maybe pay down a little debt. So I'll have a conversation with your lender to see if there's any scenarios like that that may help out. Now, finding your home, let's talk a little bit more about the home that you're interested in here in just a little bit. I have a guide to help you out. Be interested to find out. I know that you wanted a 4-2 and you wanted to be in Virginia Beach. You were hoping for a garage, but I just wanted to chat a little bit more about some of the extras just to make sure that we can put a good list together. Now, when we make an offer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to research some comparable homes. I want to see how is that home priced? How long has it been on the market? And I want to make sure that we negotiate the best terms for you so that you pay a fair price and not overpay for that house. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So we'll also have a chance to get the home inspected and appraised. And a home inspection generally costs anywhere from about $350 to $450. Really depends on the size of the home and if there's any other features, like there's some exterior buildings. Now, it is definitely worth the cost, and here's why. You're going to get a report, could be anywhere from 20 to 40 pages or maybe even more. That's going to tell you about some of the systems in the house, the age of the systems. Are they in good condition? Maybe they need some maintenance, or are there some repairs that we want to negotiate with the seller? The goal is to get you a home in good condition and not in which something is going to cost you thousands of dollars down the road. So that's why we want to do. That's why we want to make sure that we have the home inspected. Now, as you're working on your loan, and you are working with the lender, giving them documents. They're going to ask certain questions about your history. And what I would encourage you to do is to stay in touch with your lender and make sure that you get those in. What slows down the process is if the lender isn't receiving some of the documents that they need. Sometimes that can lead to delays in closing. There will be an appraisal to make sure that the home is worth what we have it under contract for. That cost, it's about $600. And what I do is I would save that as well. So here are 3 things that I want you to save a little bit of money for. One would be an earnest money deposit. That's not a down payment on the home, but that's what they call good faith money, right? That's money that's held in escrow by your settlement agent so that contractually we fulfill our obligations while we're in the purchase process. Now, if for some reason we did not move forward on the home, like let's say the inspection didn't work out or your loan approval didn't work out, then you would get that money back. The only time that money would be not returned to you is if you didn't fulfill the contractual obligations. But that's something that I have your back for, and I'll help you out. I would suggest anywhere from $500 to about $1,000. Would that be okay? And I'm watching their body language. Are they wincing like, oh my God, how am I going to come up with all this money? Right? Or do I see confidence? Right? Because I may want to offer a lower earnest money deposit, right? I may say, look, hey, look, let's stick to the lower end, the $500, So the earnest money deposit. Next is that home inspection, as I mentioned, to save probably about $400. We probably could get a military discount on that too. And that appraisal for $600. Now, the goal is sometimes we can get a little bit of that money back at closing, and I would certainly love an opportunity to try for that. So I know that's a lot of information, but here's the great news. Once you reach closing, I'll be able to hand you keys. You'll be able to move into the house same day. So our close date is something that is proposed. Sometimes it doesn't always happen on time, but we're really going to know that in advance because I know that you're trying to navigate getting out an apartment and moving vehicles and people helping you. So as we get closer to the date, we'll know where we are on how close we are to settling on the right date. But I'd love to be able to stay on target for you. So the rest of this home buyer information pack. Now, be careful this is off script here. Be careful in your how much of this you present. And here's why. Because the attention span of people has shortened, right? When we had a home buyer pack 10 years ago, it was about 50 pages and we went through the whole thing, right? But what has changed over the last 10 years? We live in a social post mentality, right? Even videos, short-term content, right? Short TikTok videos, short reels, right? And Now we want to receive information in short bursts. Even this training is too long for you right now, right? But there's a lot to go over. So you want to go over the process, but you want to give them some homework. Because if you try to beat them down with 15 pages of presentation, they're going to check out. And when you get to the point of signing a buyer or broker, you don't want them mentally exhausted, right? You're going through the steps. What you're doing is you're informing, but you're also sharing your value. You're proving to them that, hey, you need me. Look at all the stuff you got to do. Don't go it alone, right? Make sure you have somebody that has your back. That's what I'm here for. And getting that commitment of having the buyer broker side. That's the goal in that consultation. But give them homework. All right. So, Natisha, on the rest of this buyer information packet, we're going to share this with you so you can, read up on it at home. I'm sure you'll love to do that, right? Turn off the TV and, hey, let's read about home buying. But I want to make sure that you're informed a bit more about your finances. And I know that you've already chosen a lender. Congratulations on your pre-approval. But, if you had a few more questions, there are some handy questions here you can ask your lender. Don't be afraid to ask. We're here to help. And also, it'll give you a few ideas of some of the documents you want to prepare for your loan approval. And I would use that as a checklist to help you get organized on that this weekend. So you received your pre-approval, which is great. And as far as down payment, it should be no money down. That's one of the great benefits of your VA loan. We want to make sure that we want to stay in your pre-approval. So when we search for homes, we're going to look at homes that you can afford, and maybe we can even find something under your pre-approval. We do that a lot. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the type of home. I know that we talked about location, but let's dive in a little bit more about, okay, I know that you don't have any children right now, but here's something I always suggest to my clients is when you're buying a home, yes, still take school district into consideration because you may want to sell that home in the future. And is it something that will be well received on the market in 3, 5 years down the road? Also, walk-in closets, backyards, what are some of the other things that are important to you? So at this point, I have a home buyer checklist, right? And that's where I'm going to go over a little bit more detail on what they want for the home so that I understand and they have a better understanding as well. Moving forward. So, going over so what you'd like in the home, your must list and some things you'd like to have. Here's one of the best ways to see homes, right? So I'm going to send you a search for the multiple listing service. And you know what? I put in the criteria, but I'm not personally choosing the home, right? So I'm not looking at it and saying, hey, that has orange walls. They're not going to like it. I'm not going to send it. I don't personally choose anything cosmetically. I'll simply put in your criteria. The multiple listing service will send you homes on a daily basis. And then you can pick and choose what you like or don't like based on some of the homes that are sent. When you are favoriting or trash can, I can kind of see that on the side too. Now, you may see some homes that are on Zillow, homes.com, realtor.com, and all those sites as well. And feel free to send me those addresses and I will look up the information and then I can add that to the list. There could be some times, Trey, that you're getting an email and you don't see a home on it, but you see it on, let's say, Zillow. Well, I'm sending you homes that are not under contract. And a lot of those sites don't really do a good job of showing what's under contract or not. So that might be a little of the discrepancy, but again, just send me the address and I'm always willing to double check. Also, here's a good way to look at houses too. We make the best decisions when we have choices and compare. I'm going to repeat that for everybody. We make the best decisions when we have choices and compare. So sometimes it's going to be tempting to go run out on a Thursday night and look at one house. But what I would suggest is we put a list together of a few houses in your criteria. And then when we go look, we will compare the houses and floor plans to see what makes the most sense for you. It's just easier to make the best decision based on choices. Does that make sense? It does? Okay, great. So when we make an offer, what I'm going to do, as it says here, I'm going to check some of the comparable homes. And there's a lot that we put into an offer, but don't worry, I got you on this, right? I know that price is the first thing we always think about, but it's will they cover some of your closing costs? Inspection timelines. When will we close? We most certainly want to have a termite moisture inspection. And then is there anything else with the house that we may need? And that's something that I'll help put together for you and work on the negotiation. Then we'll have that home inspection, as I mentioned, and we'll have an opportunity to negotiate repairs. Notice I don't really talk a lot about releasing in a transaction, right? I don't talk about walking away. I'm talking about getting an inspection and see what we can work out through negotiation so that you get a home in good condition. I know that when we get excited about a home and we're looking at if it's remodeled or the paint colors, but part of my job is to make sure that the air conditioning is working and that the roof is in good shape and all that sort of fun stuff too. So before closing, there is a title search that's going on. What that means is the settlement company is going to do a search to make sure that there isn't anything like judgments, liens, anything that would cause an issue with your ownership of the home. Now, there are some things that sometimes they come up, but most times those are worked out. And you'll have some people behind the scenes who are going to be working hard to make sure that everything is good with the title of the home. Now, this closing disclosure, I know you're running into a lot of new terms, and I'm sorry for this, but the closing disclosure is basically a bit of a bottom line statement before closing that you'll have a chance to review so that you understand a little bit more about, okay, what my monthly payment is. Are there any sort of closing costs with my interest rate finally will be, things like that. We'll have a chance to do a final walkthrough as well. So we'll see the home, make sure that it's in a good condition, that those are, and any repairs that were negotiated were done. And then on closing day, as I mentioned, you'll have a chance to have keys and move in. Do you have any questions? If you don't, what we could do is open up the MLS and start putting in some information and see what homes come up in your search. All right. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I got one question. Do we schedule the home inspections and stuff, or do they do it?
I would take the wheel on scheduling inspections. Um, so we have some partner home inspectors that we suggest where they have numerous inspectors, so easy to schedule. And you can offer choices, right? So, hey, we work with QAI or Beacon, let's say, both good companies. If you wanted to go to their websites, I would send them an email with their website links if you wanted to take a look to see if you had a preference. And I can help get that scheduled for you. The reason for it, Trey, is because you want to make sure it works with your schedule, right? And your client's schedule, not the seller's schedule. You want to make sure that it works with yours. And um, you never know what sort of company they may schedule, and it's important to have the right people in there. But yeah, you're scheduling the home inspection. Our transaction coordinator can help out with that. And then also a termite moisture inspection. We do suggest one of our preferred partners because of good results. They understand the expectations on these transactions, and they've got everything from termite moisture to foundation specialist and everything in between we basically need. So the agent is generally responsible for that. A transaction coordinator can help. Any other questions?
So do they send the invoice to the homeowner directly, or does the transaction to the transaction coordinator?
So most home inspectors, what they're going to do is they're going to send a payment link, and home inspections are pay at time of service or prior. It's not part of closing cost. So you need to be careful because they will assume that the $400 they have to pay is going to be at closing. But not all homes close after the home inspection, right? So that's why it's pay at time of service, and the home inspection company will take on the responsibility of obtaining payment. Termite moisture could be pay at time of service or closing. It depends on the company and contractually how that was set up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Awesome. So, what I would suggest is prepare, and then after you're done preparing, prepare some more and practice, right? So, what I would suggest is downloading this on your computer, reading it, printing it out, making notations, right? Jot down notes of what would I say here? What would I say there, right? Rehearse it, right? Anytime you're presenting something, let's say the contract or a buyer information packet, you are paraphrasing, not reading, and write some notes of how would I generalize this and keep this moving with momentum. And what happens over time is you start to have your talk track through this, and they are going to feel confident because you do a good job of communicating the road ahead. They're going to trust you. They're going to sign that buyer broker. They're going to say, "You're my agent."